there's a lot of talk now about mobility work and training the joint first when you think about movement, how it's initiated from the deepest part of your anatomy first. And usually that starts like around the joint capsule and doing small little movements, gaining good control and making sure you have good function of the joint first and the small stabilizers. So you don't rely on those larger muscle groups that you usually kind of see on the outside, kind of like the deltoids and the lats and everything to start kind of moving. So when you have those small stabilizers around the joint working properly and better joint position, everything just kind of seems to kind of work better.
Welcome to the Low Tide Boys, a Swimrun podcast. I'm Chip.
I'm Chris, and this is episode 107 of the show. I know.
Woo!
I know. On the show this week, we have a Bay Area legend and a man that is very well known by an entire generation of endurance athletes here in California. Kevin Burns runs San Francisco Sports Massage and Performance and has gotten countless of athletes, even NFL teams, college teams ready to compete. We have both been on Kevin's table, and he's the first person we call when niggles show up. We asked him to come on the show to talk about the importance of having a good mobility practice to keep swimrunners primed for peak performance, and also just talked about just his work in general.
Yeah, lots of great takeaways. Get the notepads out, folks.
This is a notepad episode.
Definitely. It's
sure.
Some serious knowledge bombs.
Yeah.
We got to get a knowledge bomb sounder.
Yeah,
Sound
and you
effect
probably need a
going.
medical dictionary. Anyway, it's great. But first,
Yes, on to training updates. ÖTILLÖ Catalina is just 9 weeks away. 9 weeks, people. That's a hair over 2 months.
yeah.
Chris and I, we've been hitting the hills. We've been kicking our own booties in the pool, getting ready for what Catalina, we already know what it's going to bring. It's going to bring the heat. It's going to bring, the heat as in the intensity, not necessarily the temperature heat. I could bring the heat. I don't think it's going to.
Yeah.
But we're getting ready. We're having fun. And we can't wait to see you all there on Catalina Island at Avalon.
Chipper's been doing his research on bison, so he's going to know everything about bison.
Yes. Bison fun fact. You can judge a bison's mood by its tail. When it hangs down and swings naturally, the bison is usually calm. If the tail stands straight up, watch out. It might be ready to charge.
That's pretty good intel.
Put that in your back pocket for when you're climbing that climb in Catalina.
Yeah.
And if you see that bison with a straight up point towards the sky tail, get the hell out of there.
Yep. Good luck with
Tune
that.
in next week for another fun bison. Now on to this week's shout-outs.
All right. This week we're shouting out 3 new patrons on Patreon.
What?
Andrea, Ryan, and Adrian. Really appreciate the support. Love you guys. And we hope to see you 3 on our first Patreon Zoom meetup. That's taking place on January 22nd. That's a Saturday at 4 p.m. California time. That's Pacific time for the unhip.
I can't wait.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to it.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. Yeah, this is the first time we're doing this. We hope to see everyone there. And if you don't know what we're talking about, just check out our Patreon.
Check out Patreon to unlock exclusive access to cool stuff like this.
Super cool.
Hanging out with us on Zoom. Now on to this week's Feats of Endurance. So this week's winner is Sweden's own Victor, and I apologize in advance, Vasternas, for his Sanjabaka Trail 60K that he ran over the weekend. Great job, Victor. Now, if you're like, what are we talking about? Well, we have a really scientific and defined process for selecting a few of our members of the Low Tide Boys Swimrun Strava Club based off their athletic feats, and they can win the Feats of Endurance Award just like Victor did. So if you want to be potentially included in this award, head on over to Strava, search Low Tide Boys, join up with how many, Chris? Are we getting close to 400 now?
I think so. I haven't.
Mercy me.
380?
380,
like that?
upper 300s in athletes associating with the Low Tide Boys.
Yeah.
As everyone trains for swim runs, running, life.
It's getting harder and harder to give kudos to everyone, I must say.
How was your Strava year in review?
My goodness.
How many kudos
ridiculous.
did you dole out?
It was like over 10,000. It was a lot.
I I'll just take this time to apologize. I'm not as good as Chris,
No.
and I saw my kudos received greatly outweighed my kudos given. I did feel guilty about that. I'll try to be better about that.
Hey man, it's work.
But now for this week in Swimrun is back. So is the theme song. Hit it.
All right, our journalism department is back from their extended European-style holiday, and we have a couple new updates to share with everyone this week. So Odyssey Swimrun has opened registration for their 2022 event, and we encourage everyone to sign up before January 31st to take advantage of their early bird pricing and sign up for one or all of their events at the lowest price of the year. We will be at 2, hopefully 3, maybe 4, probably not 4, but hopefully 3. But yeah, we love their events, and obviously, they've been huge supporters of us, and can't wait to see what this year holds for them.
They have Casco, Orcas,
Mackinac,
and Austin.
Yeah, and Austin's fun.
Yes.
Everyone should do Austin. I mean, they're all fun, but
They're
Austin
all
is just a great way to close the year off.
Orcas, we do have our eye on you.
Yeah,
there is unfinished business. I'm just going to put that
100%. Now, Chipper, could I interest you in swim running in Tahiti? Is that something you might be interested in?
Sure.
Well, Xterra recently opened registration for their Xterra Tahiti swim run, which is taking place on May 29th. So we hope that someone signs up and just lets us know how it went, because I don't think we can get a hall pass for that.
Probably not.
But
that'll be tough.
But yeah, I was Tahiti.
Xterra getting to the game.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
I mean, maybe they've been in the game. I don't know. I just happened to see. I'm sorry. Our journalism department just happened to see a post. The One Water Race announced some more of the teams that will be traversing the Stockholm archipelago on August 23rd through 25th, including the American team of Quest Racing with our very own Annie and Brent Molesbury and Jason and Andrew Magnus. I don't know Jason and Andrew, but they might be brothers. They might be twins. Who knows? This race is going to be epic, and it's going to be ridiculous, and we're super stoked to have our own Annie Molesbury on there. And we're actually going to try to get this team on the show so we can sort of figure out what the hell were they thinking when they decided they wanted to sign up for this.
And who talked who into this? That's what I want.
I know. So this is the last week, and when this show releases today, Thursday, January 20th, to enter the ranking application for the 2022 ÖTILLÖ, the Swimrun World Championship. So best of luck to everyone looking to spend a nice Monday on a legendary course in September.
Hopefully we'll see you there.
Yeah, hopefully. In the bummer department news, Swimrun NC announced that this year's edition of their epic swimrun at Hanging Rock State Park, which is taking place on October 16th, will be its last. Let's make sure that we send this race off in style by signing up to race and celebrate this event that's been a labor of love since the beginning. We've officially put in our application to race this event because we've basically we had to do it before. We couldn't do it last year, and we're definitely doing it this year. So we hope to see everyone there. Now, to close it out on a high note, our favorite hydration company, pH, footnote, this isn't a sponsored post, recently rebranded as Precision Fuel and Hydration. The name change makes a lot of sense given that they're definitely in the fuel game after recently introducing their first gel, the PF30, which, if I could speak for Chipper,
tasty.
Delightful.
And it'll be available at the Odyssey races.
That's right. But rest assured, the same awesome athlete support isn't changing, only the name, but you can still get all the help to get dialed in for races and speak to an expert and all that stuff, which is just an awesome service that they provide. Anyway, that's it for this week. Feel free to reach out and let us know if there's anything that you'd like for us to mention on the show.
Yes, now for updates. So the season's kicked off. People have started their training. They're getting out there. They're maybe trying to squeeze into last year's wetsuit, and it's not fitting. Or maybe you stayed on top of things, and it's too big on you now. We have the Swimrun Swap Meet Facebook group.
Yeah,
a safe space for swim runners to buy and sell and trade, swap your gear. Give it a second life, like Woody got in Toy Story 2.
Yeah.
With Andy written on his foot. So
That's right.
maybe someone can buy your wetsuit that has something written on it.
Yeah.
But
Or if you get one of our pool buoys, it's going to be something written on it for sure.
We'll put it on there. So go over to Facebook, just search Swimrun Swap Meet. There's a couple brief questions to fill out there, and you'll be in, and there's wetsuits on there, there's shoes on there, people asking all sorts of stuff. So it's a great place if you're looking for some gear on the cheap and you don't want to dive full in. Head on over to the Swimrun swap meet.
Yes,
definitely. Now, let's get to our chat with Kevin Burns.
Yeah, so as we mentioned in the beginning, we're hyping him up because he deserves to be hyped up. He's an encyclopedia of knowledge, and we peppered him with all kinds of, but to be honest, were really self-serving questions.
Yeah. My leg's been
so my neck, I've had this kink in it. We chatted with him about the importance of sleep as a key feature of your recovery protocol, what common swimming and running issues he sees in his practice, his ideal prescriptions for pre and post workouts. We got his take on all of the newest recovery gadgets that are out there, and I mean, we learned a ton, and we think that you, the listener, will as well. I mean, he's been a good friend of ours for a long time. When we all lived in the city, I used to see him at the same coffee shop at least a couple times a week.
Yeah,
chat it up. He's awesome, and I think anyone who's been on his table is lucky.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the nice thing about this again is that there's a lot of actionable things to take away that you can kind of apply, and spoiler alert, none of it's super groundbreaking tough stuff. So he lays it all out there. He's a great guy, great conversation. So let's take it away with Kevin from SF Sports Massage and Performance. Coming up. He's definitely made me squirt him a couple times when he really
Oh yeah, Graston method. You ever do that like the butter knife on the quads?
It feels like a knife.
I mean, it looks like a butter knife, but it's just dull, and you just like rub it. Yeah, Graston method.
I
it's
haven't
sort
done
of like
that
to
yet.
detach the fat. Oh, ugh.
Ooh, mercy me.
Anyway. Show today we have Kevin Burns, but before we let him say anything, I think it's really important that we actually set the stage for who we have on today. And he's listening, so I mean every single word that I'm saying. He's a Bay Area legend, a man that's very well known by pretty much an entire generation of endurance athletes in the Bay Area, I'd say.
That's safe.
He's worked with professional teams, NFL, the Olympics, I mean, all over the place. And he's worked with us two little schleps over here. Like, we've definitely spent time on his table. And whenever anyone would ask me, I got this niggle, I need to get a massage, Kevin Burns, like right away. So with that intro, Kevin, welcome to the show. Great to talk to you.
Great talking with you guys. Thank you very much. Very kind words there.
It's all true.
It is all true. Yeah, you have such a deep and breadth of experience. I mean, you've worked with the Oakland Raiders, with 49ers, football players, big old muscle-bound giants of the
like
gridiron.
Chipper Nicodemus.
You've worked with Chipper Nicodemus and Chris Douglas here and there. And then you've worked with, the top of the top athletes racing in Kona every year and triathletes and even I'm going to mess this up, the sailing team, America's Cup. Oracle squad. Or no, the All Blacks.
All Blacks.
Yeah. Emirates Team New Zealand.
Oh, gotcha. Sorry.
Yeah.
We totally
messed up
screwed
the
that
sport.
up.
Wrong sport. Okay.
You had it right, sailing, but they're quite the athletes. So that was a very fun time and one of the best experiences I've ever had working with professional athletes.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, when I used to be on the table, you tell me, I'm working with this guy, and you have like two phones, and they just ignore you. I mean, it was like a peek behind the curtain. But we have you today to talk about Swimrun and talk about essentially from your perspective, how do we keep swim runners primed for peak performance? So.
And endurance athletes in general.
Yeah, but we're talking, the stresses that swimming have. Usually swimming with paddles and then running trails, essentially. So I guess let's start with, in general, what are the things that you would just tell someone coming off the street being like, hey, I want to do these sports. What should I look out for to stay mobile and healthy?
Well, it's the kind of the low-hanging fruit first, right? Or the big kind of, not buzz these days, but the main key is kind of sleep, right? Sleep is your key recovery for performance and overall health. So getting proper rest, proper sleep, Quality sleep is like probably the best way to kind of put it, because people might sleep 8 hours a night, but is it good quality sleep or is it fragmented? Proper hydration, and then just good nutrition. Just keeping it simple, I think, is the best way. You know, people like to kind of muddy the waters a little bit and get too complicated and worry about little things that don't really matter when they don't have the main things dialed in.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with you there, because it feels like a lot of people are looking for, oh, what's the next thing I can buy to help my sore legs, or I got a bum shoulder or whatever. Is it a special...
what Theragun attachment do I need to get?
Yeah, do I need the tennis ball or the poker one? But it does come down to, like making sure that you are nailing the basics, and I think that's kind of a really good place to start for people, and that's something that I'm trying to get a better handle on, the nutrition piece. And you know, with young kids, sleep it's a toss up. It's a toss up for people. So kind of dealing with that, and naps. Actually, if you could squeeze a nap in, I've been always hearing good things about a quick 20-minute power nap.
Yeah, I think there's lots of, great research out there these days, and I think the main thing also, with coming from my perspective as a body worker and soft tissue therapist, is, as I tell a lot of my athletes, schedule it into your training program like you would any other discipline, either strength or running or swimming. You have to schedule it in just like any other component of your training schedule. Otherwise, you miss it. And you can get caught up behind the 8 ball a little bit. And then you're playing catch up with an injury or some built up accumulation of stress in the body somewhere.
Yeah. I really, that's a great tip there. And just, it doesn't have to be an hour of stretching or a certain type of recovery. It can be a 10-15 minute stretch or a core thing that you just kind of add on to your workout there. And do you feel sometimes by the time for new people that make their way to you, it's already not too late for help per se, but they've already gone down the path a little bit too far, and they probably should have been having some of these foundational pieces in play, and maybe could have prevented whatever injury or niggle they have kind of that's flared up during the season?
Yeah, I don't think too late is a key way of looking at it, but it's definitely, as one of my mentors always said, there's always hope. The only time there's no hope is when you're 6 feet under. And but it just makes it a little bit difficult, especially on a time frame of performance when people have events. A lot of people come in maybe a little bit, like a week before a race. I got this Achilles injury, and can you fix it? Your race is next week. When did you start feeling this and start dealing with it? And usually the answer is kind of, maybe about a month or two ago, it started acting up. And that's what I kind of explained to the athletes, that, it's great to get on a regular program. Even if you don't start feeling little things, there's things that I can manually feel within the tissue that are built up before it becomes a physical symptom.
Yeah, well, that's actually something I definitely learned from you, Kevin, because there was a point when I was training super hard, and it'd be like, I probably, instead of seeing like a chiropractor or some sort of physio, I would just call you and be like, hey, can I come in? I'm feeling this thing. And I think for those 2 years, I stayed, pretty healthy, all things considered. And I think it was definitely that advice of just like, hey, if start feeling something, that's the time to start taking care of it, rather than waiting until, like you just mentioned, like a week before the race, right?
Right. And, and each athlete and individuals has different motivation and key points that will kind of grab their attention. For the longest time, I've always mentioned kind of injury prevention. And some people just don't like to hear that. Case in point, when I had an athlete for a while, just talking about, we're just going to try to reduce your injury potential. Didn't really kind of get on his radar until I said, how about if we could just make you faster? And then the light bulb went off. He's like, whoa, faster? What do you mean? Well, I'm like, well, if your soft tissue is in a healthier environment to move, and you're in an endurance event, and you can move through ranges of motion easier because your soft tissue is more supple, your joints are more open, your energy efficiency is much likely to be dispersed throughout your whole system instead of saying, oh, I have to use a lot more to get through my hip flexion or my hip extension because my quads or something are really tight, and I have to use that much more force and power to kind of move them through there. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was a great, kind of made me like, oh yeah, okay. Everyone learns a little differently. Everybody has different points of interest that kind of, you're going to set them to where they need to go.
Well, it's funny you mentioned people not liking injury prevention because I'm working with someone who's it's called prehab now. So I guess that doesn't sound as injury-ish,
right?
Injury prevention. Yeah. So that seems to be like the word that's replaced that for folks. So I'm prehabbing, prehabbing my abs and stuff.
Getting ready.
Getting ready.
Prehab is a great way to kind of look at it. So
Now, Kevin. Let's talk about specific for swimming. Like, what are the common things that you see on your table from, in terms of injuries or mobility problems from swimmers that are coming to see you?
Swimmers, it's classically a lot of shoulder issues, but I do see some low back issues also, just from the position in the water. Sometimes people aren't on top of the water as much as they should be with their lower torso, and they tend to extend with their low back. So, each person's a little unique in their own way, but classically swimming's a big shoulder stressor for a lot of people.
And what are some things that, like, if you had like 3 tips you tell someone, it's like, hey, either these are things to look out for in your technique if it's causing shoulder pain, or these are ways to prevent shoulder pain by doing some sort of stretches or something?
I think a lot of dry land core work is great for swimming. Some resistant band exercises, and just getting in, and also mixing up your strokes. If you're kind of classically, you're going to be racing in a freestyle, but it's beneficial to kind of throw in some breaststroke, some backstroke, just to kind of break up the repetitive motion and monotony of a freestyle and just staring at the bottom of the pool the whole time.
We're definitely aware of that.
We're living the monotony.
Yeah.
I like the point about mixing up the strokes. So your butterfly, your breaststroke or backstroke or whatever. That's the extent of my stroke knowledge. Since in the shoulders I only know this because I was a pitcher in high school and junior college a little bit. But your rotator cuff of what your arm rotates only has very limited amount of muscles. I think it's 4. I'm not totally sure. I also failed out of kinesiology in high school, so don't
have that in your high school.
Well, I bowed out. I took the withdrawal actually in college. But anyway, that's why I'm not doing. That's why we're talking to Kevin. He's a pro here.
A little baseball background. That's great to hear. I played a little baseball in college, so I know the shoulder stuff.
Yeah. So and very similar. I was a pitcher, so we did it kind of the resistance bands, which are very similar to these. We have resistance bands here, except they just have swim paddles on them. But they had ones that would have a baseball, and you're doing you're rotating outward, and then you'll rotate in, and you're kind of doing a little bit of very easy, not super intense stuff, but 5-10 minutes before you even start to grab a ball to throw catch or jump in the pool to swim laps. That's kind of a nice little warm up to get everything sort of activated and warmed up. Is that something that you would sort of prescribe, I guess?
Yeah, I would. There's a lot of talk now about mobility work and training the joint first when you think about movement, how it's initiated from the deepest part of your anatomy first. And usually that starts like around the joint capsule, and doing small little movements, gaining good control and making sure you have good function of the joint first and the small stabilizers, so you don't rely on those larger muscle groups that you usually kind of see on the outside, kind of like the deltoids and the lats and everything, to start kind of moving. So when you have those small stabilizers around the joint working properly and better joint position, everything just kind of seems to kind of work better.
Yeah, makes sense.
It does. It really does.
And then when we transition to the running aspect, I think when people think, oh, I'm going to get warmed up for a run, that's the old thing. Oh, my old PE coach told me to do the quad stretch and do the hamstring, the static stretches, just holding onto a pole or your buddy and stretching and stuff. And I feel like over time that's been, I don't want to say disproven, but that's sort of not been the recommended kind of advice for getting everything activated and ready to go for especially a run on trails and uneven footing and up and down, side to side, not just straight road kind of stuff. What similar question to what Chris had about the swimming? What sort of things do you like to have people get all activated for the running?
With my athletes, I definitely prefer prior to events or training, just a dynamic warm up, some neuromuscular programming, and getting the nervous system primed. And that could be just anything from like a Superman stretch, world's greatest stretch, Frankenstein's and inchworms, things like that are kind of just going to walking lunges with with a twist involved.
Okay.
Anything that kind of, some hops, things like that, kind of more dynamic, movement based, not so much static. I save the static stretching and longer hold stretchings for after training events or after events.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then, so is the stuff to warm up for running kind of more explosive, like you're trying to get a quick skip up, or is it more of you just want to get your bigger muscles kind of warmed up and get the heat moving through the body?
Yeah, that's the kind of question, is getting the body warmed up, right? Getting the circulation, getting your cardiovascular system primed, getting your nervous system primed, getting core temperature and blood flowing.
Yeah. You mentioned sort of the nervous system, and I feel like when you talk to massage therapists and stuff, they're usually just talking about muscles, but
they ain't talking about your head.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit more about sort of the importance of having your nervous system not be out of whack, and sort of what are some symptoms that it might be?
Well, that's a big one, right? Nervous system, because when you kind of talk to massage therapists, they all talk about hands-on breaking up adhesion, scar tissue, which, if you kind of read the literature and the research, that's kind of physically impossible to kind of produce that much force with your hands to kind of break up scar tissue, So what are we ultimately affecting when we're doing hands-on manual therapy is nervous system. Basically inputs into your body using our hands as in force production into the tissue, stimulating sensory receptors within the tissue. And then there's so many different, right? We have lots of different sensory receptors that respond from different light pressure, stretching, temperature, deep pressure, vibration. So there's lots of different receptors within the tissue, within the muscles, the tendons, the joint capsules that kind of get affected. And they're basically giving you feedback into your central nervous system that are basically afferent and efferent loops, where it kind of like put something in, something comes back. And so people are always kind of saying, well, what are you feeling when you're kind of working with the soft tissue? And I tell them, like, all I can really feel is abnormal tension within the tissue. Then my next question is like, okay, now we have to kind of figure out what's causing that tension. Is it a mechanical tension that you just kind of went and trained and ran and it's just overuse? Or is it nervous system tension where the body's protecting something such as a joint injury? And that's usually where you kind of like, you can take a nail and hammer to it and just pound it, and it never kind of releases. And right. You can do all the soft tissue work. You can lay into it. You put an elbow into it. You can jump on it if you want. And it's just not going to release because it's not mechanical tension. So, okay, how do we get that to kind of release? And it's usually kind of, okay, let's get the joint in maybe a better position within the capsule. Do some joint centration, which is basically a fancy word for centralizing the joint position. So, yeah.
I think Well,
I hope everyone has their notebooks.
Yeah,
out,
if you're listening at home, there's going to be a test at the end, a pop quiz coming up. So, yeah, that was thanks for that knowledge bomb, dude. That was something else.
I don't know if it was so much of a knowledge bomb. You try to keep it very simple for people and try to keep it layman's terms where they can actually understand it, without going into too much science and physiology, and because people can get lost pretty easily. Sometimes I even get lost, even though kind of with the
we get lost all the time. So no big deal.
I'm lost right now. Now let me ask you. So in terms of frequency, what if you had people just had unlimited dollars and could come see you as often as they needed to, what would be a good frequency to sort of keep the body nimble and primed and just making sure that everything's working well? Is it a week, once a month? What would be your ideal thing? Just curious, so I can tell my wife.
Well, I think that all depends on your lifestyle and training schedule, type of a training you're putting into it. So since we're here on the Swimrun podcast, depend, what you guys putting in, 20 hours a week of training.
Not at
quite.
the moment.
Not quite. We'll get there. If we qualify for world championships, we'll be there.
We're saving it. We're saving it for a little bit.
Yeah. But I think
the less is more.
I think 8 to 12, 8 to 15 is probably a good range for most listeners of our show.
Yeah. Right. I'd probably say if you could get body work once a week, that'd be incredible. Once every 2 weeks, typically with your, from a classic triathlon background, I know you both have, and I've worked with a lot of triathletes. You kind of work in those 3-week cycles of building, and then that fourth week is usually kind of like a recovery, active recovery week. I always tell people that's probably a great time to schedule in some body work.
Okay.
But yeah, ultimately, if you had unlimited funds and the time, and you put it into your lifestyle, once a week, that'd be just a great way of going about it, just from a health standpoint, besides just from a performance standpoint.
Right. Yeah. And, one thing I always appreciated working with you is after a while, it's you know my body, where I usually have my tension and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Is that something I feel at this point you must just be so familiar with what makes different Bay Area athletes tick at this point. Is that something that you kind of sense as well? Once you've worked with someone consistently, exactly sort of how their how their muscles and nervous system is kind of firing?
Yes and no, because each day and each week's different for everyone, right? Especially as you guys know now with children, sometimes you're not going to have some great sleep. There's going to be different stresses, either family, work, society, they all add up into different stresses into the body and accumulate in different ways. But you definitely see some patterns. Hopefully you can kind of help create better patterns when you work with someone on a regular basis. If they keep coming in with the same stress and built up attention and tissue, okay, what's causing this? We can do all the soft tissue work here, but unless we address the cause, we're just going to be treating the symptom and kind of like just chasing your tail around.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. We talked about getting ready for your event and how to activate everything and get all lubed up, so to speak. Now, after your big race or your big hard one of your weekend workouts or swim runs, besides getting a great night's rest and a solid amount of protein and your green leafy vegetables and broccoli, after, what do you like to kind of recommend people do to help their body recover the best that it can, essentially?
Well,
from your
recovery
standpoint.
is, I'd go right into nutrition right away, right? Kind of just proper, good, healthy, clean nutrition. Getting back to the basics, like you said, you got your protein, fats, and carbohydrates, basis macros. Everyone always wants to kind of find these shortcuts or a biohack, right? I'm going to do this green smoothie and whatever, but proper hydration, good nutrient dense eating also. From a bodywork standpoint, there's so much from nowadays.
Do I just want to go home and sit on the couch for a couple hours and watch Mission Impossible, or do I want to walk around and maybe go, go walk, do a little hike with the family or something like that? Like, is it kind of put your feet up and chill, or is it stay a little bit active, or it depends?
Well, knowing you guys, probably a nice cold beer and kicking your feet up are probably, it's pretty realistic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, like if you can move, like, there's a lot of athletes I know that kind of go events and they travel for them, and then they're jumping on a plane that day sometimes, or the next day. Yeah. Maybe kind of, hey, do a little cool down, spin or walk. Yeah. I love the family time, getting out on a hike, low intensity, just keep moving, keep the blood flowing, keep the lymphatic system moving.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I did that after I did a marathon. This was a bunch of years ago, the Marine Corps marathon, and
it was a really cool race shirt they had that year.
Yeah, and it was a mock long sleeve shirt. And after the race, like I went to the hotel, took a shower, and was on a plane back to San Francisco like 2 hours later. That was horrible.
Yeah, I mean that
was horrible.
It's tough to sit after running for hours and hours just to sit stationary.
As soon as I could stand up, I was just like walking up and down the aisle like what old guys do, because I was just so afraid of my hips locking up, and there wasn't enough compression in the world, I think, at that point. But yeah, I mean, definitely after a big effort, what would you say would be like a good strategy? Is it like getting massage your body work like a week after the soreness abates, if you have that, or what would be the best time to, like, after a huge effort to come see someone like you to get sort of cleaned up a bit?
Typically post event, I kind of suggest 48 to 72 hours after is ideal. You don't have to necessarily come in the next day. There's a lot of home care and self care that you can do with just kind of foam rolling, some ice bath type stuff, cold plunges. Sauna. I'm a big proponent for sauna work, heat.
What
and
kind
just
of stuff
moving.
Do you recommend with the sauna? Is it 20 minutes
Just
in
hot.
or
Super hot?
besides it being really hot?
20 minutes is great. It depends on your experience with it and what you can handle, but going in for 20 minutes, I love it. I love like the far infrared saunas these days. Their technology's great, heating you in a deeper sense. There's a lot of science on how that heats you in a deeper cellular response within the tissue than just kind of like a steam sauna or a dry heat sauna.
Okay, I like that. So if I'm taking your advice from earlier, I'm getting a little 20-30 minute spin on the bike, or maybe a really easy 20-minute kind of recovery run at a super casual pace at the gym maybe, and then go and sit in the sauna for 10, 15, 20 minutes and
then cap
see
it off
Kevin
with a nice
the day
cold
after.
shower.
Yeah,
a cold shower after, and then a cold beer when you get home.
Yeah, or in
and
the shower.
broccoli.
Yeah.
That sounds like a winning combination.
Okay.
There you go. You heard
Kevin
it.
Burns' prescription.
Yeah, you heard it.
Well, we I've been dying to ask you this question because I really trust your opinion. We kind of mentioned a little bit ago with the Theragun, and they got foam rollers that vibrate and little balls with other balls on them that vibrate and all sorts of things. What's your opinion on these new quote unquote, like, I guess, recovery aids or recovery tools? Your massage guns and boots and that sort of thing.
I like it all. I'm kind of a junkie when it comes to all that stuff. From a scientific standpoint, there'll be people out there tell you there's not a lot of good science behind it, but it's kind of like, hey, do you feel better after you do that stuff? And if the answer is yes, then keep doing it, right? No one can tell you that, scientifically you're not feeling good after you foam roll or you kind of use a vibration gun like a Theragun or Hypervolt or something like that, or even like the Normatec compression sleeves. And so if you feel better, keep doing it.
Yeah, whether it's a placebo or not.
Yeah.
But you don't have to spend tons of money, you're also saying, too, on $1,000 boots or a $300 gun, because sleep is free. and you can be on top of your nutrition and your hydration. You can really stay on top of that stuff as well, and that costs nothing.
Yeah, hydration's key, right? I think the golden rule people are kind of going by now is like half your body weight in ounces. And then if you're an athlete and you're training, I probably can even up that even more.
Wow.
There you go.
We're going to chug a gallon of water each after this.
Yeah, I'm just getting thirsty just listening to this.
Parched.
Well, Kevin, it's late here in the Bay Area. We want to thank you so much for taking the time to come on. We love you. We've been huge fans of yours. You've helped us out so much over the years. And just can't thank you enough for coming on the show. We really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you for the opportunity, and always great to kind of share the wealth and educate people. And, as I always say during my sessions, besides just treatment, educating people on how they can better take care of themselves is the key. And
love it.
I love what I do. I don't even consider it work. So it's a blessing, and I'm humbled to be a servant, mighty servant, as they say at the end of the day.
I love it.
Well, thanks again, Kevin. Really appreciate it, man.
Thank you, guys. Have a great night.
You too. Well, that's it for this week's episode. Thanks so much for listening to the show. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and leave a review, since that's the best way to help other people discover the show and the sport of swim run.
Sign up for a newsletter at lowtideboys.com. That's boys with a Z. And check out our meme page at the Low Tide Boys on Instagram. If you have any suggestions for the show or questions for us, send us a DM or an email at lowtideboys@gmail.com.
We'd like to thank Riding Easy Records for our show music, and of course our wives for their support and tolerance of all our swim run activities, podcast, and other stuff.
Yeah, other stuff. Way to keep it PG. Finally, you can support our efforts on Patreon. Until next time, get out there and go for a swim.
Go for a run.
Then another swim.
Then another run.
And then another swim.
And then another run.
And then just keep going.
So you're done. Or maybe can't stop.
Stop.